Welcome to the Stellar Gaming Dev YouTube channel. Andrin here again, and today I wanted to show a few simple fade and transitions for your games. There was a previous video on this page that talked about different ways to do fades, but I was instructed to do an entire new video with fun examples. I don't want to keep you waiting longer, so let's get into it. So first I'm going to show you the extension that I use to do these fades and transitions. The first one on the list is the camera shake. This extension allows you to shake the entire layer and everything on it. You can use it for impacts, earthquakes, or even to simulate floating on a boat. The next extension is the flash layer. It allows you to make the entire layer flash for any duration you choose. The next is sprite masking. It allows sprites to be masked by other objects or even the shape painter object. The flash extension makes specific objects flash. I actually didn't use this one yet since I decided to stop trying to make fades and transitions so I could upload this video, but I'll probably use it when I make more. The awesome flash and transition painter is the easiest way to do a simple transition. You can literally get a transition done in one action if you want it. So let's take a look at this event sheet. You can see I have quite a few to work with. I had to stop myself at 10, but we will go through each one, and I can show you how simple it is to do. Before we start, take a look at some of the global variables I have here. They are all Booleans, and they make something happen, so that when I go to the next scene, the transition carries over. I also use a few built-in effects that you can apply to the layers themselves. CRT and blur were the only ones I used, but I had ideas for the others too. While they are loaded into the layer, they are deactivated when the scene starts to keep things from looking weird. And because too many effects happening at once can cause issues with your game, it's best to use them only when you need them. The first transition is the easiest thing you can do. Fade to black within the same scene. This will be activated when I press the letter Q, and it only requires one action, the flash and transition painter. If we take a look at the details, we can see that in order to get the desired fade out within the same scene, the duration can be set to the number 2 or greater. The type of effect needs to be a flash, and the direction needs to be set to forward. We can now load GDevelop and press the letter Q to make the fade happen. It's just that easy. This is the type of fade you would use for something like the end of your game before the credits roll, all in one action. The next transition is going to be activated when I press the letter W. This will create a fade out to black, then it will fade back in. If we look at the details, the only difference here is the duration is now 3 seconds, and the type of transition is set to both instead of forward. Let's take a look and see what happens. The wait time is for the animation change of the character, and it is set to half of the actual transition time. This transition is good for flashbacks, future predictions, mood changes, or even day-to-day adventures. The next transition is a circular transition done by pressing the letter E in my event sheet. This is the first time I will use one of the global Boolean variables and an action to change to a new scene. Let's take a look at the details. The changes here are the duration, which is set to 1.5 seconds. The type of effect is now circular instead of flash. The direction is now forward, and the end opacity is 255. Here is where I set the global Boolean to true from its default value of false. After a 2-second wait, it will move to the next scene, with the Boolean still active. Let's move to the other scene's event sheet to see what is going on here. I know this looks like a mad scientist's operating table, but don't freak out too much. Here is where the Boolean event would be reflected when the second scene loads. The Boolean then will be set to false. You'll notice the shape painter effect type is backwards on stage 2 instead of forward, like stage 1. Let's see why it's like this. When the circle fills the screen for stage 1, the scene switches, and then the events for that global Boolean continue to run when stage 2 loads, then it is set to false. Pretty easy, right? The next transition is a fade out on stage 1, then a fade in, and we are now on stage 2. This is activated when I press the letter R. For the action properties, the duration is 2, the effect type is flash, the direction is forward, and the end opacity is 0. The Boolean for fade is set to true here, and it is referenced in stage 2. Let's see how it works. Alright, that works pretty nice. Moving on to the next transition, we have shift left into a new scene. If you notice there isn't a shape painter action here, that's because it's not needed, unless you want to use it personally for something else. Instead, I am using a camera tween to get the desired effect I want. You'll see that I have the specific X and Y coordinates set based on my project's dimensions, which is 1289 by 720. The layer selection remains on base, the easing is set to linear, and the duration is set to 0.5. In the list of actions, the blur effect for the layer is enabled. There is also another tween of the camera, and we can take a quick look at the properties to see what I have set up, and a quick look at the Boolean being activated once again. Let's see how it performs. And there you have it. A rather quick and simple way to perform a shift-left transition using a tween on the camera. You can see that the Boolean which this references is also on stage 2 and is set to false once there and the blur is turned off. We can now head over to the next transition, which is a pulse into the next scene. This particular transition uses a global object, which is a custom black image made in Piscal that covers the entire screen. The specific actions create the black box, sets the scene window width and scene window height to be both divided by 2, which puts it in the center of the scene. Then the object is resized to be the dimension of the largest default project size in GDevelop, which is 1920 by 1080. I completely forgot that I used the Flash extension here. Here it is referenced on stage 2. Let's take a look at it and see what it does. Very simple. Moving to the next transition, we go back to the tween camera action to get the desired effect. It only has 4 actions. A camera zoom, a wait action, a Boolean variable, which is switched on before the entire scene is switched to stage 2. When the stage loads, the camera zoom is already set to 0.1 before the camera zooms in and the Boolean is shut off. The next transition is the opposite and zooms out. Once again, this only uses 4 actions, like the zoom in transition. Let's take a look and see what it does. That was way too simple to get done. Not very much work is required here. If I head over to stage 2, you can see it referenced here and starts with the zoom already set. Let's move on to the next transition. This transition is a horizontal split into a new scene, and it is activated when I press the letter D. There are some create an object actions, which are once again just black boxes created as global objects in Piscal and resized to fit the desired scene window. Instead of tweening the camera, the actual black box objects are tweened. They are created outside of the scene, and then their positions are tweened into the scene where they meet up. The x-coordinates of the boxes are the size of the width of the actual project, which is 1280. However, the y-coordinates represents the height and is set to 360, which is half of 720, so half of the screen. When their positions are tweened, they will cover the top and bottom of the current scene window before the action to change to a new scene. Let's take a look and see how it works. This was pretty simple, right? Let's take a look at how it is set up on stage 2. The black boxes are already created when stage 2 starts, then their positions are tweened to go outside of the scene where they are then deleted after the tween finishes. The next transition is a vertical slam split into the next scene. This transition is done in the same way as the horizontal, except it is done vertically. Also, you can totally add sound effects to transitions to give them dramatic effect. Let's see how this one works. Pretty simple, right? And it doesn't take half the page to do a transition to another scene. The next transition is a spin, or whirlpool, into a new scene. We're back to messing with the camera tweens again, and this time the camera is rotated with 1 tween, then a zoom tween is performed after a half-second wait. Here is where the Boolean is turned on. Let's take a look and see how it works. It makes you a little dizzy. This can be adjusted based on specific needs for your project, such as the speed of the rotation and zoom. We can take a quick look at the specific actions for the rotation. For stage 2, the tween camera rotation is set to 0 and the tween zoom is set to 1. The next transition is probably the most lengthy one, but it's still relatively easy. Many of the actions, as you can see, are used in other transitions. The only true new additions are the CRT effect and the mask and object extension. The CRT effect, when applied to the layer, makes it look similar to an old TV monitor. The mask effect is used on one of the black box objects before the Flash and Transition Painter action runs. Another transition occurs before the second scene Transition Painter object starts, and then the scene changes. Let's move to the events for Stage 2 and take a quick look. Here the actions are reversed. We can go and check out the transition now here. A basic TV off transition is really simple to do. The next transition is when the scene shifts down and the next scene comes down in its place. We're back to messing with camera tweets again, and here you can see I have the properties set up how I want them for the desired action. The Boolean is set to true, so it will carry over to the next scene, and we can go test it now to see how it works. Alright, that works pretty fine for a simple transition. We can disregard this one. It has the same name as the previous transition, but as you can see with the one action, I was messing with some 3D things. This is when I stopped doing the transitions for now. I'll most likely do some 3D looking ones soon. The last transition is an interactive one, meaning it will do the transition, but when I press a button, something different will happen. You can see I have several event blocks to make this work, but we can take a quick look to see what is going on with it.
Nami? Nani si Teruna? Bakajaro?
Alright, and that was the last one I did for now. You can mix the transitions up since they are coordinated by Booleans. So instead of setting the default Boolean for the transition to true, I would pick an entirely different Boolean variable, such in this case, a whirlpool into split screen. Maybe I can do a horizontal split into a vertical one. As you can see, I can do pretty much whatever I want this way. I can already see the vertical slam being used as the versus screen for a fighting game or an encounter with a monster in an RPG game. Well, that concludes this first video on easy fades and transitions. You can expect another in the future, since I find this particularly fun and it's easy. I am going to leave the project file in a downloadable link where you can go in and mess around with it if you want. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment for more, and be on the lookout for a follow-up on this one. The next video is a request, and it will deal with communicating with an LLM in your game. I'll go through the extension that is used and how I got it to answer my question. After that, the following video will deal with the GDevelop extension health points and power bars. Until next time.